Hello everyone. I figured before we start this video I wanted to let you know that my email will be in the description so you can submit your own personal stories as well. I would love to make a video of subscriber stories. Thank you. And with that said and done, let's jump right in. Number 1. I messed up on the deep web. When I was 12, I got into hacking and I loved it, and I had gotten quite good at it, but my arrogance caused my unbecoming. You see, I was browsing some forum and I came across something labeled the dark web. I was overcome with curiosity, so I clicked on it, and the post covered everything from what it is to how to access it. I, arrogant enough to think, I won't get caught, proceeded to download Tor browser with no extra precautions and started browsing. All of a sudden, my laptop crashed. It froze and I got hundreds of pop-ups warning me about a virus. Then it shut off. I stared in awe as it turned back on, only with a green light turned on where my camera is. Someone was watching. I got an anonymous message on Skype that read, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." "Who are you?" I responded, while panicking and covering my camera with my thumb. "Your new friend." And then the chat suddenly disappeared. I formatted my laptop and made sure there's no remaining malware or viruses, and had a quiet couple of days after that, and was pretty relieved. I thought I had defeated him, but sadly, I would come to know that wasn't the case. A week later, I was getting dressed in my room and was completely naked when I got a text on my phone that had no caller ID. It said, "Come closer." "Who's this?" The text didn't faze me yet. I thought it was a wrong number or one of my friends pranking me. "Come closer." Closer to what? I was sure it was my friend messing with me at this point. To the camera. Huh? Which camera? Okay, which one of you assholes is this? I was confused, but I had told my friends about the incident a couple days ago. So other than the anxiety growing within me, I was constantly trying to convince myself that this was a prank. Laptop. I walked to my laptop still naked, and the light by the camera wasn't on. "I know you're either Joey or Zach." I put down my phone and got dressed. My phone started vibrating uncontrollably. I had gotten 16 pictures, all of me, all naked. I screamed and threw my phone, ultimately breaking my screen. I went off the grid completely after that. No social media, no internet for a solid year. It was mortifying, especially for a 12-year-old girl. When I had got back on, I had no issues and no warning signs, and was relieved until almost 4 years later, 16 at the time. I had gotten a new laptop and was at my boyfriend's house. We were studying together when it turned into a makeout session. I heard my laptop ding multiple times and had gotten annoyed and turned around to see what it was. I guess I must have looked like I had seen a ghost because my boyfriend started panicking and shaking me. It was him. He's back. Or maybe he's never left. I started rewinding memories of all the times I've been undressing with my laptop on. Every time I've shared something private during a Skype call, and I started having a panic attack. His message read, "Don't forget to use protection." As if I could smell the irony in that. He then continued to harass me for the next 2 years. It's been quiet for a year now, until about 4 hours ago. I got a text that read, "Let me in." And then I heard a knock at my door. My door was locked and dead-bolted. There was no way I'm leaving my apartment. It's safe in here. I called the police 3 hours ago, and no one has shown up. I called again 30 minutes, and still nothing. I called my boyfriend hours ago too. He said he's on his way, but he's not answering his phone. Update. My boyfriend came over 5 minutes ago, and when he saw me breaking down crying, swore up and down that he didn't get a call from me. And we went to the police station together, and there was no record of my call. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to do. Number 2. This story happened to my friend on the deep web. I had a pretty scary experience too, but mine was a few years ago. This story happened to my friend just 1 week ago. For those who don't know, the deep web is pretty much the internet that isn't indexed by search engines like Yahoo, Google, Bing, or etc. And it can only be accessed by special software such as Tor. To give you some context, this is the friend that showed me how to get on the deep web. He's always been really fascinated with it, but after my horror story experience with the deep web hackers, he pretty much took a long break. He was too worried. This guy seemed professional. He didn't resume using the deep web until about a year after my story, but he didn't tell anyone. He would buy stolen Apple products, drugs, etc. About a week or two ago, he was buying some cocaine. It wasn't from the seller he normally buys through, though, but it was really cheap. So he gave the seller his address and a fake email he used so they could stay in contact until the deal was done. He wasn't too worried. This guy seemed professional, and it was the same procedure for most of his purchases. My friend had told him to ship it in a movie case or something that his mom wouldn't expect to have drugs in. This was probably his biggest mistake. He let the man know he was just a teenager, but my friend isn't the most careful of people. A few days later, his mom walks in the house and hands my friend a movie that he had ordered online. He took it and opened it up, but inside there wasn't any cocaine, just a folded up piece of paper. He opened it and read it. "There has been a problem. Email me for details." At the bottom, the man had left a new email for my friend to contact. My friend got on his email and asked the guy what the problem was. He responded, "Something has happened. If I were to send it to you, it could be traced back to me, and we would both get caught. Meet me at the elementary school at 7 o'clock. We will just do it in person." The school wasn't too far away, so my friend told my mom he was staying the night at my house, and he headed off to meet the man. He called me and asked if I could be there with him, but I was really busy with my schoolwork, so I said I couldn't. I did tell him to take a knife or something though, just in case things went wrong. When he got to the parking lot outside the school, he heard a car honking its horn. He saw it was a Jeep, but the plate had been covered up by duct tape, and the windows were tinted very dark. The man got out of his car and gave my friend the drugs, and my friend paid him. It seemed like everything went fine. My friend got in his car and sat there a bit in order to call and tell me everything went fine. He had noticed when he had hung up, the man was still there though. Why was he waiting? He didn't think too much of it and drove off. When he got to the first red light, he noticed that the man's car was right behind him. He was starting to get a little nervous, but he kept driving. When he reached his neighborhood, the man was still following him, so he decided it would be a bad idea to lead him to his house. He instead turned into the next neighborhood and took a whole bunch of random turns, hoping to lose the man. Eventually, he no longer saw the car, so he pulled the car into his garage and called it a day. That night, he noticed the sound of a car engine. He looked out his window and saw the man's car parked in his driveway. He got wide-eyed and snuck downstairs and peered through the window. Inside the car, the man was smoking a cigarette and talking on the phone, but in the passenger seat, he also saw a second man. The second one was a lot more suspicious looking, even more so than the shady drug dealer man. The second one had messed up hair, a trashy shirt, and while it was hard to see, my friend could almost make out a scar from a massive burn on the side of his neck on his face. He kept watching the two men until the second man began to look out the window more and more often. Eventually, he was just staring at the window my friend was watching them from. My friend decided he had had enough and was going to call the cops. He didn't care if he would get in trouble at this point. He moved away from the window and called the police, who told him to grab a weapon or something to defend himself and wait for the police. He had waited for about 5 minutes when he saw a figure quietly come out of his mom's room, who was still sleeping. The man shut the door behind him and noticed my friend had seen him. The figure sprinted towards my friend with what looked like a knife and raised in his hand. My friend grabbed a pot from a nearby table and threw it at the figure. It hit him in the face and shattered. The figure screamed and fell to the floor. My friend turned on the lights and saw the second man with the burn rolling on the floor. His face was covered in blood, and shards of glass were sticking out. His right eye had tons of blood pouring out. He must have been hit pretty hard. As the man began to slowly get up, my friend grabbed a kitchen knife and drove it into the man's shoulder. Another scream could be heard by the man. The man began to stumble over the front door, while police sirens could be heard. Both men were caught on sight, but my friend's mom had been killed. Her throat had been slit, and she had 23 stab wounds, the duct tape covering her mouth. My friend was arrested too for drug possession, and his trial is coming up. But he lost his mom because of it, so I don't think he'll be buying drugs from the deep web ever again. Number 3. Since this whole new fascination for the deep web has been surfacing the web for a bit now, I thought I would check into it. You know, because I am way too curious for my own good. And trust me, I know that now. I should have listened to the quote, "Curiosity killed a cat." But my fucked mind at the time, I thought I wasn't a cat. So I did what every normal teenager does, look up how to do it. Which I am not going into detail for your own good if you know how to. But if you really want to look up a YouTube tutorial like me, just be careful, okay? Anyways, I should state, if you don't know what the deep web is, it's basically the rest of the internet we can't just Google search to get on. On it, you can buy drugs, weapons, and children. Or watch some really fucking gross shit. So I did it. And I searched for a bit. I saw a couple copy sites. The Silk Road, which is a site to buy some heavy-ass drugs. I'm not a druggie or a freak or anything. I am normal. It was interesting for the first 20 minutes. You know, the adrenaline you get for doing something bad or whatever. So I made it to this website. I would rather not give out the name of. So it was just a quiz set site. You would just click it like a picture of any sort. Each page had 4, and I guess I would just click 1. At the end of it would say, "Winner, winner, winner," in flashing lights, and it would have a picture of something random. Each picture was random, nothing gruesome. Sometimes a cat, dog, or people. Then below winner it would say retake. I did because I found joy in looking at some of the pictures on it, I guess, for the 10th time. One of the 4 pictures that popped up was me. Not sitting down at my desk or anything. Like a picture I might have posted on Twitter, but it was me. I was blown back a little and curious, so I clicked on it. The next page, there was another picture of me, and so on each page. When I got to the last one and clicked on it, instead of winner it said loser, loser, loser. Then it had a link at the bottom, so I clicked on it. On it was a scoreboard of, I guess, the losers. And it had their full names and their death dates. I didn't have a death date next to mine. My fingers were shaking, and that should have been enough to make me close my laptop and throw it out, or all the police, but now I kept searching. Maybe because I wanted to prove myself that it was some sort of sick joke, that this wasn't real. So I clicked on my name, and a pop-up box sprung out of nowhere saying, "You're next." I tried to shut down my laptop. One after another kept popping up. Hide, run, had your fun. And then a bunch of weird scripts with weird numbers. Then it did shut down. When I restarted it, nothing weird was done to my computer, and I'm scared. I haven't told anyone, and I don't know what to do. And of course, Tor deletes everything. I haven't gone back on it out of fear. Hopefully, nothing will happen. Number 4. One of the hottest trends on YouTube right now is ordering these random mystery boxes from complete strangers on the deep web and opening them on camera. I don't know why. I didn't realize a clear majority of these videos are fake and staged for their scare factor, but I didn't. I thought it was a great idea and hopped on the bandwagon to claim my YouTube stardom that I desperately longed for. For those who don't know a lot about the deep web, it's simply a part of the internet that isn't accessible from your basic Chrome, Firefox, or Explorer search engines. You must download the encryption program Tor in the Tor browser for starters. It's not illegal to access this part of the internet, but since it is anonymous, a great deal of illegal actions happen here. The possibilities are endless. I grabbed my laptop I've had since I've graduated in 2011 and downloaded the required programs. I prefer to use my laptop over my desktop in case of viruses and such. My 7-year-old laptop is a little more disposable. I had a little Bitcoin phase over a few years ago when it was blowing up, so I had a little saved already. It wasn't much, only 1 Bitcoin, which translates to roughly $632 US, but it was enough for what I was looking for. After the downloads were finished, I opened the browser and started my journey at the Hidden Wiki website. They provided a lot of useful links to get you started on the deep web. I scrolled through the warnings and gist of what it was and found the link I was looking for. Almost forgot, I muttered to myself as I grabbed the duct tape from my desk drawer. I cut a tiny square piece off the end and placed it over my webcam. Call me paranoid, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I clicked on the first link and waited what seemed like forever for the page to load. It was another very plain page with a list of popular websites that you could scroll through on the side. I continued my search through the web links until I found a page dedicated to mystery boxes. I wanted to find one around $500 so people knew I meant business on my channel. These were relatively small, staying around 0.0125 to 0.05 Bitcoin range. I was worried about being scammed. I decided to continue my search after a quick bathroom break. When I came back, I noticed my cursor was off to the side and was able to click on a link that must have matched the background color of the web page because I couldn't see it. I indulged in my curiosity and hit the link. I was taken to a pitch blank page with small white text near the top. I'm selling one random package to any brave enough to receive it for only 0.12 Bitcoin or best offer. Only one, huh? I thought to myself. I'll shoot my shot. I hit the small payment button and was asked how much I'd like to spend. I entered 1 Bitcoin and with fingers crossed. The payment went through without any hesitation, and I was instantly met with a chat box asking where I'd like my package sent. I know this wasn't a good idea, and I regret it to this day, but the other YouTube channels use their own address often, so I thought nothing of it. I gave them my home address. I waited over a month for the box to come in, 36 days to be exact. It arrived directly on my front porch and was wrapped numerous times in red tape. I set my camera on the tripod and adjusted it to show me and the box on the small wooden table. I draped a sheet in the background so it looked a little more professional. I collect some gloves and scissors so I can bang the video out in one go. Hey everybody, welcome to tonight's vlog. Boy do I have a surprise for you. I continue my monologue mentioning how I got the box and how much I paid. Without wasting further time, let's open this deep web mystery box. I grab the scissors and cut along the red tape. I make sure my gloves are on tight and I rip the box open. My brow furrows as I see just one book. Without saying a word, I take the book out of the box. I was pretty pissed. I spent over $600 on a book. Well folks, looks like we got us a dud. These pages better be made of gold. The outside of the book was old and tattered, and it smelled of mildew and mold. I cracked the book open to the first page and glanced over the contents. It's an old photo album. Smells of old rot. Let's look at these pictures. I show the camera a view of the page's contents. It has 4 pictures on the first page, all labeled by days. The first picture said Day 1, the second Day 2, and so on. The pictures were taken with an old Polaroid camera. There were pictures of airplanes, random suitcases, a couple of taxis, and some pretty shady motels. Looks like someone's old travel photos. I continue flipping through the pages. Every day was a different photo of nature, or cars, or trains. Day 18 held the oddest photo yet. It was just of a mask, handcuffs, a gag, and a bottle of some sort of drug it looked like. These people have one hell of a fetish. I try to keep the video interesting. I zoom into the picture with the camera, so everyone can see it. Around day 32, things started getting weird. There was a picture of a house, but not just any house. It was the house I grew up in, my parents' house. My hand covered my mouth as I gasped for air. How is this? I'm unable to form a sentence. I'm at a loss for words. Day 33. I turn the page and see a man and a woman handcuffed and gagged. I immediately expel the contents of my stomach as I see my own mom's scared and crying face, and my dad, face first in a pile of what looked like black tar. Day 34. This picture is taken inside what looks like a vehicle. I focus my gaze on the dashboard where a small photo is barely visible. It's an old school photo of me, there in my dad's truck. Day 35. Another house, but this one much similar. The photo is too blurry to make out the details. My hands are trembling and all I can hear is my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I flip to the last page. I immediately throw the book to the ground and run to the window. I jiggle the hatch frantically and throw it open. Without hesitation, I jump out and run to the neighbors. As I'm running, I turn around for a brief second. What I saw haunts me to this day. A tall, hooded figure stood in my room, looking at me through the window. He stood motionless before lifting his hand and waving. I screamed for my neighbor, who hurried me inside and called the cops. I sat and just cried. I cried out of fear for my life. I cried for my parents. I cried because it was all my fault. My lack of common sense got my parents killed, and I will have to live with that forever. If you access the deep web, do not release any personal information, even if people on YouTube do it. Most of it's not real. And always check your boxes. It would have saved me a lot of trouble if I would have noticed the box I received had no tracking sticker on it. It was hand delivered. Number 5. My local internet cafe is not much of a sight to behold. I think that's what may have contributed to it shutting down for a couple months back in June. The exterior was reminiscent of an abandoned shack with its dilapidated appearance and broken windows. However, after they cleaned up the inside, I definitely saw some improvement. Sparkly clean tile floors and beautiful mahogany countertops filled the cafe with a sense of ease and elegance. I always got plenty of work done in there, so the shop's grungy look never bothered me much, but it was nice to have a change of scenery once the cleanup was done. I was probably the only regular at the cafe, venturing in on almost a daily basis. Plenty of other folks cycled in and out, but nary a familiar face would show up. This was fine, since I only went there to edit my vlogs and website on occasion. Striking up a conversation with someone recognizable was not on the agenda, ever. I was there for some much-needed peace and quiet, not small talk. Though I had Wi-Fi at home, the thin walls there did little to muffle my father's drunken ramblings. The cafe was my escape from the unwanted noise. I strolled in on a Saturday morning, just 5 days after the grand reopening. I was feeling pretty groggy, still recovering from a cold I caught during the week. The humid August air didn't help matters. Because of this, I decided to grab a coffee before getting my things set up. I walked across the glimmering, newly replaced floors and heard them squeak under my sneakers. I laughed a little to myself, almost tempted to start turning in place just to hear the sound a few more times. No, I told myself, grow up. I ordered my coffee and took a look around the room while I waited for it. I took a mental note of how many faces were in the cafe with me. I was surely going to grab a quiet little table in the corner away from these strangers. Small iced regular? The barista held out my coffee and straw. Thanks, I said plainly. I threw down a couple of quarters as a tip and strolled on over to the table I wanted. I spent the next few hours clipping and splicing my videos from the days previous. I was doing a week-long series about the gym I go to, basically workout tips and some comedy bits with my buddy Jake, who works at the front desk. I found myself laughing out loud over a protein shake skit we had done. I may have drawn some attention to my little corner of the room. Though the staring eventually subsided, I felt it best for me to leave, as I had been in there for much longer than usual. I reached down and unplugged my laptop charger, and that's when my hand brushed up against something. Confused, I took a look under my table to investigate. A 16-inch black bag sat just beyond where my feet were settled. It had pockets and a shoulder strap, as well as an abundance of dust coating the leather. Holy crap, I thought to myself. Someone must have just left their laptop behind or something. At first, I was going to do the right thing. I very easily could have handed it to the barista and called it a day. I guess, maybe that would have been the smart thing to do. However, a mixture of curiosity and stupidity came over me, keeping me from being honest. Instead, after packing up my own things, I swung the mystery bag over my shoulder and swiftly exited the cafe. Stupid. I pulled into my driveway at about noon, the hot summer sun beaming down on my front lawn. My father was doing his usual half-assed inspection of the plants in the garden, beer can in hand. I tried to get into the house without a word to him, but he stopped me just as I opened the storm door.
Hey, why are you in such a hurry?
He asked, taking a swig of his drink. Dad, I don't have time. Important website business.
Well,
He slurred.
don't stop on my account.
But you just stopped me, I thought to myself. I pushed through the front door, passing my sleeping mother on the couch, and darted upstairs to my room. I shut my door hard behind me and locked it immediately. I tossed my belongings and newly found goods onto my bed and kicked my shoes clear across the room. I was excited to dig into this lucky haul. Carefully and slowly, I unzipped the top of the bag and pulled it open. I gasped a little to myself. Despite the appearance of the bag, the contents were no joke. A shiny, brand new looking laptop was nestled nicely inside. I pulled it out and observed it with awe. It was certainly nicer than my basic 500 gig HP from a big box store. I still couldn't believe what I was holding. I flipped it open and began feeling the keys and monitor. It was in mint condition. I had to be the luckiest guy in the world. Everything was there, including a charger and wireless mouse. I even found a bag of screen wipes at the bottom. I also dug into the pockets, curious as to what treasure I might find in there. What I found was a cell phone. Nothing special, just some cheap Android phone. It was still powered on and had no screen lock on it. Exploring it further, I noticed there were no texts, and only one recent call to an out-of-state number. Being into electronics, I went into the settings to see what kind of operating system it had. It was vastly out of date on software, still set in some variation of the Lollipop OS. That's alright, I thought. I could still flip it for a quick $10 or so. I placed it on the bed next to the laptop and sat for a moment, trying to take in what I had in front of me. This was such a great find, but I needed to power on the laptop and figure out what I was working with. To my excitement, there was no login screen. I was in, immediately after booting it up. I was never as into laptops as I was phones, but I could tell right away I was not working with your standard stock operating system. This thing resembled more of a modded setup that I had seen kids working with back in high school, but I couldn't name it off the top of my head. Luckily, it was simple enough to navigate. I set it up with my Wi-Fi and dived right into the file storage to get some idea of whose computer I had. I was disappointed for just a few minutes, but after clicking around a bit, I did find a folder labeled A. Inside was one JPEG, titled 1 by 1. Intrigued, my stomach did a little flip as I opened the image. I was puzzled by what I found. It was a screenshot from a website. It looked like a post in some forum from a user named Anonindon4, with nothing but phone numbers listed and 0 replies. Underneath, the list was a tagline, "You know who you are." Scanning the image for answers, I noticed the address bar for the site. It seemed to be a nonsense string of characters followed by a .onion extension. Onion? Wasn't that a parody news site or something? I wasn't too sure, but I decided to dig a little deeper. I clicked on the X at the top, taking me back to the desktop. That's when I noticed another folder. This one was labeled Pics, which stirred up some more thrills in my bones. Yes, I cheered to myself. This would more than likely reveal the owner's identity. I became disappointed as I clicked through the pictures. There was no human life, just shots of different places and scenery. This included a dark image of a barbershop, a path in the woods somewhere, and even someone's garage. What really caught my eye was the last pic. It was the cafe. My stomach started doing acrobatics now, my heart racing. Why were there random pictures in this thing? Why was there a screenshot of a message board with a list of phone numbers? The files just weren't adding up for me, but I hatched a half-baked plan. I didn't know if it was going to end the mystery, but I couldn't help but cry. I pulled up the pic with the phone numbers, grabbed the Android phone, and then dialed the first number at the top of the list. After only 2 rings, I was greeted with silence. Strange, I thought, but I pressed on. I dialed the next number on the list. This time, it rang 5 times before I got a generic inbox greeting, with the phone number listed. Interesting, but I hung up before I heard the beep. I grew bored of dialing the random numbers. I decided to take a break and put the laptop and cell phone away for a little while. I knew I'd come back to it later. Once the evening rolled around, I waited for my parents to go to bed, and then fixed myself up a snack. This was pretty much a nightly routine of mine. I clicked on the TV as I usually did and settled on the first news channel I scrolled to. This is when things took a turn for the weird. A breaking news story was displayed on the screen. One from the next town over. Young barber, age 25, found murdered at work. Damn, I shook my head. That sucks. A female news reporter was on the scene, outside the barbershop where it took place. Wait a second. I couldn't believe my eyes. That barbershop. It was the same one from the pic on the laptop. I was sure of it. I put my plate down on the coffee table and raced upstairs to grab the computer. I booted it up, clicked on the folder of the pictures, and then the photo in question. I ran back downstairs with the laptop in hand and held it up to the TV screen. Yes, it was definitely the same barbershop. Wow, what were the chances of that? I was shaking my head in amazement. I finished watching the news story and began feeling tired. I was about ready for bed, so I grabbed the remote. The news story just after grabbed my attention before I could hit the power button. Cold murder in local forest. This one was also nearby, just over the bridge in the opposite direction. This world is terrible, I thought. I hadn't seen 2 stories like that back to back in a long time. That's when it hit me. I scrolled over to the picture of the woods in the same folder. Then I waited to see if the news story included the location of the homicide on video. Though I didn't get anything solid to compare it to, I was definitely getting weird vibes. First a barbershop, and now a forest? I had to be grasping at straws though, right? I decided it was bedtime. I had a pretty restless night of sleep, tossing and turning and kicking my covers to the foot of my bed. It was hot and humid, and I kept waking up with the sweats. Needless to say, I was in a dire need of coffee the next morning. I was probably smart to leave the strange laptop at home, grabbing my own equipment as I headed out the door. I drove rather quickly to the cafe, eyelids still heavy. I got my regular coffee and sat down at my favorite booth in the corner. Only one other person resided in the building. Apart from the baristas at work, it was nice and quiet, and felt peaceful. A good contrast from my evening snack and sweaty night of interrupted rest. Still, my mind couldn't help but wonder. The web address from the screenshot I found came rolling into the forefront of my thoughts. What was that onion domain all about? Why did the web address make no sense? It was something like code in flux, with random numbers and symbols after it. This was meaningless to me. I decided to do some research. I couldn't recall the exact website, but I remembered the .onion extension, so I started from there. I was immediately blown away. Apparently, what it pertains to is web addresses not available on normal services. It takes you through something called Tor, and is used for some pretty shady activity. I guess it involves what's called the dark web. I've heard a little bit about this before. I was beginning to feel sick. The websites listed on the wiki were pretty revolting to say the least. Nothing I would ever want to be involved in. The worst part? I was beginning to think of the laptop I found was used solely to access this part of the internet. I couldn't bear the thought of being in possession of it any longer. I had to do something. I stormed out of the cafe, ready to spring into action. When I was stopped by a tap on my leg, I looked down to see a homeless-looking man in a black tattered leather jacket sitting up against the front of the building. His face looked rough, complete with a badly shaven beard and cracked lips. He looked miserable. He held out a small plastic cup, looking up at me with desperation in his eyes.
Spare change, sir?
I'm in a hurry, dude. I don't carry cash.
Please?
He begged some more. He reached out and grabbed my pants leg. No, get away from me. I kicked his hand away. The guy looks upset. His eyes were actually watering a little bit. I felt a little bad, but damn, don't grab me. That's when the guy did the strangest thing. He took out a phone and started taking pictures of me. What are you doing now? I asked, confused as hell. He didn't answer. All I could do was run to my car and leave as fast as possible. What was this guy's deal? I called my friend Peter on my way home. I knew he would have some more insight on this whole thing. I was hoping I could bring him to my house and have him wipe the computer clean. Then I could sell it to some random Yahoo and be done with this whole misadventure. Once I picked up my friend, I sped back to my house and showed him what I found in the cafe. He was blown away. "This thing is lethal," he laughed. It looks pretty customized, honestly." "Yeah, I noticed that, but take a look at these." I clicked through the photos, showing him the ones that I compared with the news stories. "So, you think this laptop has some sort of connection with the murders?" "I don't know, man, but I think there's something fishy going on." He shrugged and took over the mouse for a moment. "Where's the pictures of the phone numbers?" "It's somewhere in the file storage." "Yep, click there and bingo." Peter stared intently at the list and the address bar in the screenshot. He also checked the file description and saw that the screenshot originated from the laptop, so it was taken from within the device. My hairs were at attention, all up and down my skin. "So, you tested these numbers out?" "Yeah, with this phone." I handed him the cell phone that came in the bag with the laptop, and he scanned through it rapidly. Definitely a track phone, something bought as a burner, possibly for some sort of business task? "Shall we try another phone number?" I nodded and pointed to one just below the phone numbers I tested out. He dialed it and threw it on speakerphone so we could both listen in. It rang, and rang, and rang. It didn't stop ringing, so we hung up after the 8th ring. Peter looked at the phone funny and then up at me. "I honestly don't know what's up with all this. Did you want me to just factory reset everything?" "Yeah, I mean, isn't that going to take care of my problem?" "Not sure, but I think I'd like to have some fun with this before we call it a day." I gave him a look, a glance of disagreement. I didn't think that would be in our best interest. "I don't think we should be messing with this, dude. Come on, what could go wrong? You could even film it. This could go viral." "Well, I'm not going to vlog me hanging around a stolen laptop. Just do what you gotta do with it and let's move on." Peter smirked, looked at the screen again, and dialed another phone number from the list. Again, we got nothing. This time, just another generic voicemail reading box. He continued on to the next phone number, and halfway through dialing, he stopped. His eyes were scanning the screen. His face was now white as a ghost. "What? Why'd you stop? You okay?" "This is my phone number." My heart panged like a club to a gong. That can't be." I scooted over next to Peter and observed the screen. He was right. Just to be sure, he finished dialing and hit send. He put the phone up to his ear and waited. Just as he suspected, his pocket lit up and his ringtone sang away. We both looked at each other in shock. "Dude!" My hands were shaking, and my mouth was agape so far. I think my jaw was brushing my bed sheets. "How?" is all Peter could muster up from his racing thoughts. "This is unreal. I don't like this at all. Just wipe the hard drive and let's be done with it." "Wait!" he shouted, while looking up the screen again. My heart sank some more. I had a feeling about what he was about to say. "What? Don't tell me." He didn't say a word. All he did was start frantically dialing another number. That's when I felt it. My pocket was now vibrating. He didn't say a word. All he did was start frantically dialing another number. That's when I felt it. My pocket was now vibrating. I gulped so loud that I flinched. I reached down and pulled out my phone and answered. I held it up to my ear. "Peter," I said through the receiver, looking at my visibly shaken friend across from me. "This is messed up." He responded through the burner phone. I ended up driving Peter home shortly after. He had handed me the phone over and told me he wanted to leave it, take everything in. He left the laptop with me and told me he'd rather not mess with it. We decided to meet up at the cafe and drop it back off right in the morning. We'd wake up early and hopefully be the first ones in. However, I missed my alarm. Apparently, I also missed 10 calls from Peter. I opened up my messages and noticed the 4 texts he'd sent. Damn, I had to get going and fast. I had already packed up everything the night before, so all I had to do was throw on a t-shirt and shorts and head to the cafe. As I turned the corner where the cafe was, I had to hit the brakes pretty quick. What I saw on the road was nothing but cops and ambulances. There were roadblocks set up everywhere, on either side of the ambulances, and the cafe was barricaded. What in the... I was thinking out loud. This was crazy. There were people with their hands on their faces, looking scared and sad. I pulled over into the grocery store parking lot across the street and then walked over to the scene to get a closer look. I assumed Peter was doing the same thing. I ended up in a crowd of onlookers next door, looking at the scene before us. There was blood splatter on the front doors of the cafe and some papers, among other belongings, strewn all about. More blood covered the ground. Jesus, this was a damned massacre. I could hear the people beside me whispering to each other about what was going on. They're talking about a possible serial killer, one woman said to her friend. The kid was about to walk in, and suddenly bullets came in from over there. Nobody saw who fired the shots. A guy filled his wife in about what he witnessed. I was too curious just to be craning my neck from back there. I needed a closer look. I peered over at the cops who were busy questioning a barista by the ambulances. I crept past the barricade carefully. I slipped past a couple of other baristas and made my way to a second ambulance by the other barricade. The stretcher was in view now, but I couldn't tell who was in it. I decided to kneel down beside the ambulance and hopefully catch some conversation between the EMTs. I took out my phone and started recording. We lost him. He wasn't hanging in there much when we got here, but I was hoping. Jan, it's not your fault. You saved the girl. You can't save them all, you know? I wish I could. I heard him talk back before he let go, you know? He told me his name was Peter. My hand jumped up over my mouth as I let out the weirdest sound. It was a gasp combined with a grunt of disbelief. No, it couldn't be. Yeah, the other EMT said. We have his information already. Guess he was an IT guy for a local business. Smart kid, early 20s. I stumbled back a bit on my heels, dropping my phone in the process. I bumped into something solid behind me and stood up quickly. I turned around and saw that same homeless guy from the other day. My face was still contorted from the information I just received from my eavesdropping. The guy was staring at me. He didn't even react to me bumping into him. He was glaring at me from behind in the unchanging expression. I couldn't help it. I booked it across the street to my car. I could feel tears forming in my ducts, eyes twitching in the wind from my open driver's side window. Why did I have to wake up so late? Maybe Peter would have been spared from whatever this was. A drive-by? An assassination of some kind? My head was dizzy. My heart was hurting. I was beginning to make some connection. The pictures on the computer, the phone numbers, the murders, everything. I was getting an idea as to what it was I was dealing with. The stuff about the dark web, the strange laptop, the phone numbers. I arrived home, heartsick as all hell. My friend was murdered today, and I couldn't stop it. Maybe if I had never grabbed the computer from the cafe, he'd still be alive. Maybe if I hadn't been so stupid, I could have handled this whole thing differently, and he wouldn't be dead right now. To top it off, I realized I left my phone at the bloody scene. I groaned and threw my head back in the driver's seat. Now what? Well, the phone is near some cops and EMTs. Maybe if I call, they'll believe I dropped it before they got there, and I won't get in trouble. I reached back and grabbed the burner phone out from the bag and started to dial my phone number when suddenly I had a thought. If the phone numbers redialed somehow had something to do with the murders, that must mean... I grabbed the laptop out of the bag, my heart racing and body profusely sweating in fear. This whole thing was unreal. The fact that I was right in the middle of it was even worse. I clicked on the folder of pictures of the scenery from earlier. Again, my eyes scrolled across the picture of the barbershop, then the forest. Finally, my eyes got to the picture of the cafe. Yes, the phone numbers and these locations have to somehow be tied together, but I didn't know how. Why was this happening? I was about to leave the folder. Then a small thumbnail at the end of the picture caught my eye. I hovered the cursor over it and opened it up. With some cloud service, the image was revealed. My jaw dropped in utter horror. a picture of my house. I was looking at a picture of my front yard and home. I hadn't noticed this before. Why hadn't I noticed this? Over the top corner was a link, one that opened up full cloud. Over in the top corner was a link, one that opened up the full cloud folder with some email made up of more gibberish characters. This folder contained more pics that were very different from the others. No way! I shouted out loud, face contorted in anger and fear all at once. Pictures of me looking directly at the camera, others of my car. The last ones were of me sneaking into the crime scene at the cafe. That guy, that homeless looking guy from the other day, and behind the ambulance, I have his laptop. He was watching me. How did he tie into these murders? My silent tirade was interrupted by a sudden sound of a jingle to my right. The phone was ringing in my passenger seat. I picked it up and peered at the phone number. I couldn't handle this anymore. I just couldn't take it. It was my own phone number. Grudgingly, I decided to swipe and answer the call. Who is this? I stammered. A gravelly voice answered from the other end. Spare change, sir?